Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Dyer Memorial Library and a conversation with the Historical Society of Old Abington. And we have conversations on the first Sunday of 6 months out of the year. We do our fall semester, we call it, October, November, December. And then we take a couple months off for bad weather, though kind of in a pocket here now, which is kind of nice between yesterday's storm and tonight's storm. So we kind of lucked out here. But now March, April, May are our spring conversations. And so we have two more coming up. Today's is about local greenhouses and nurseries. Then on April 7th, we're doing, and again, this almost feels more appropriate for today, the blizzard of 1978. A lot of you lived through it. I was actually at Syracuse for that one, but they had storms that big all the time. That was normal. And then on Sunday, May 5th, we're doing one we're also very excited about, and that's Abington's 1901 Lamson motorcycle. A lot of you folks might be familiar with the fact that the Buffum automobile was made in Abington, but also there was a motorcycle made in Abington. And Rick Wolf up in Canada has restored one completely. And he has graciously agreed to come down to Abington and show it to us. It doesn't run, it won't run, he won't put gas in it, but he has others of that same vintage that do, but this one will remain pristine. It is priceless. So we're very much looking forward to seeing that and hearing the story of its restoration. And there's an interesting tie-in that Lamson's production happened in what became little Phil Wyman's building. So Wayne, who's talking with us, actually knew something about it, so that's kind of interesting. Now we start all of our programs the same way, and that's with a salute to the flag. So those of you who can or would stand, would you join me? And as we salute the flag, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And today's program will also be on local cable, and will be on YouTube eventually as well. So keep posted, or reach out to us if you want to see it again, or tell all your friends about it. And also, most of our past programs are already up on YouTube and available on local cable as well. So we're as high tech as we know how to be around here, I guess, and that's kind of exciting to us. We're also always looking for new members. Our membership per year is $12 on a yearly basis, or $75 on an annual basis. We have a membership table set up in the other room where you can fill out a form and sign up today if you'd like. I think there's even one available on the website online. So we survive on the contributions of our membership, and we have no other means of support. So we appreciate those who sign up for membership, and it gets you on our mailing list. We mail out postcards every month. So that's another feature, I guess, of membership, so you know what's going on. Anyway, what else? Volunteerism. We also survive with the help of our volunteers. We have several projects underway in conjunction with the Dyer Memorial Library, our hosts and co-occupants of this building. And there's some interesting work going on there that if you're interested in helping out, we can always use a hand. It's something that, as I said, we survive on. So that's something to keep in mind. Anyway, so today's program, and we like to do different types of programs throughout the year, but this program, it was the result of an idea from Dot Taylor, who just confessed to me she turned 90 last month. So you can have these. You can come to us with ideas at any age, though I think we made her wait for a while, and she is 90, so that probably wasn't fair when you think about it, but that's all right. We finally got around to it. But, ideas come to me all the time about programs I would like to do, and if they come to you, please share your ideas. Late spring, early summer, we get together and figure out what we're doing for the whole next year. So it's like never too early to do it. Today's program is going to kind of focus on one business in particular, and it got me thinking that we really should focus on a local business every year in Abington, Rockland, and Whitman. You know, maybe it's fun to do Dunkin' Donuts. They started in Quincy, and there's one in every town. There's almost one in every corner. So that might be an interesting future topic. And then I thought, well, we could maybe also do funeral homes, the business of dying. There's one of those in every town. And it's fun. They're usually in old houses, and they're by well-established families. So, I mean, that would be something. We have already done a program on apothecaries, on drugstores in Abington, Rockland, and Whitman. Have some of the few remaining independent stores along that line. Most of them are chains nowadays. So that was another one. So this just keep the thought process going. We also feature a church every year, usually in December. We've done the run of the congregational churches. We did St. Bridget's, and Bob Kelly, actually sitting in the front row here, was our speaker for that back in December. But we'll continue to do a church probably every December as we rotate through them. It'd actually be fun to do a program on churches that no longer exist. You know, some that are gone, because a lot of people have memories of those too, throughout the three towns. So that's another possible topic if anyone wants to hear more about that. But without further ado, I'm going to actually make them wait for a minute while I do an introduction. And I kind of said to Wayne up front, I said, you know, this has been fascinating for me because for me, Wayne Smith is the guy from the Lions who makes the hot dogs. You know, and many of you know him from that, from the summer concert series and from other things where he's the man manning the grill. So, but he's got a little more depth than that, as it turns out. And he sent along some material, which I'm sure is abbreviated. I'm just going to read it so I don't get it wrong. He graduated from Stockbridge School of Architecture in the University of Massachusetts in 1958 and came to work at Littlefield Wyman, Inc. upon graduation. Presently president of Littlefield, Inc., treasurer of Suburban Enterprises, Inc., treasurer of Massachusetts Farm Bureau Federation, treasurer of Massachusetts FFA Foundation, Inc., and member and past president of the Massachusetts Agricultural Club. He served on the Abington Planning Board, immediate past chair of the Old Colony YMCA, trustee of Eastern States Exposition, and member of the Abington Lions Club. Wow. When do you sleep? Anyway, can we please welcome forward Wayne Smith? Have a seat. That's quite a resume.
Well, what
do you leave out?
What actually happened, you remind me about the Lions Club, and my fellow district governor is right there, the Ted Irving, and also the present district governor is in the back of the room.
The Lions are here in force, yes.
Yeah, Ted's from up north of Boston, but anyway.
Wow, thank you for coming.
I was home one evening and the phone rang, and you know when you had the phones on the wall, one in the house and the kitchen.
With the dials?
Yes,
yeah. There you go,
Yep, grab that, and this fellow in Abington happened to be the dentist in town, wanted me to join the Abington Lions Club. He told me it was a night out of the house. And I said, the least thing I need is
a night out of the house.
And so, he said, well, you should have joined because you don't know anyone in town. You just go to work and you're working all the time. So, yes, dear. So, which every good husband says, right? And then the following year, I got another phone call, and it was Bob Murray, the dentist in town. He says, Wayne, he says, like to have you join the Lions Club, and went through all the things the Lions Club does and everything else. And I said, yes. My wife says, who was that? I said, that was Bob Murray. I said, what do you want? I want to be joining the Lions Club. I said, well, you told me what to say last year. So, and I can tell you, a lot of the things I'm involved in had a lot to do with the Lions Club. and friends and so forth. But I get off on tangents sometimes.
That's all right.
Find out when
that's allowed here. We encourage that because we learn a lot more that way.
Right.
We're here to talk about history, and it's all history.
And so I had no intention of talking about that when I got here, but
absolutely. So when you came on the scene in '58, right? Abington was a very different town, as was Rockland and Whitman. I mean,
yes.
Having been born in the 50s myself, I remember like all of Hancock Street being farmland, and it's all expensive houses now for the most part. But you came on to a town, particularly Abington, that was very agriculturally based at the time. It's changed, obviously. Can you talk about what it was when you got here?
Yes, well, I'm a Fall River kid, so
we'll forgive you just this once.
So and when I I came to, because someone at the university told me, a fellow named Professor Procopio, he said, you can, two places. One was down in Wareham and the other one was Littlefield, Wyman. So anyway, I came up here and found the place, which was really amazing because I didn't know where Abington was from Fall River.
For Fall River, no.
And then the day I went for my first day at work, I went right by it. and turned around and said, I must have missed it. So anyway.
Come on, it's just the train tracks. How
That's
hard
right.
is that?
But whenever you came into Abington, I don't care which area you came from, you saw trees.
Yeah.
And of course, being in the business, trees are
Yeah.
important to me and everything else. But Abington was like that. And I think I made some notes in here. The best thing about Abington, as everywhere, and where you work, is the people that you're with. And one of the things that happened when I worked in the retail store, and it wasn't very long that I realized that everybody in Abington was related to another person in Abington.
Of course.
And it was just amazing. And so Abington was a nice, quiet town, and I lived on the 3rd floor of the office of Littlefield, where
The building that got moved?
No, the building is there.
The one that's still there.
It's still there, right.
Okay.
So just before just before I got
that.
there, that you talked about where the motorcycle was made.
Yeah.
And it was a nice, and it still is a nice time. I was talking to a gentleman out in the library, and we were talking about what this building was and everything, and I said, yeah, that one in North Abington, that's where I went, and in order to vote, you had to go into this little, it wasn't much bigger than this room, I don't think, right in the center of North Abington, and had to read something out of a book so that you could vote. If you couldn't read it, you probably couldn't have voted, I guess. But
that was your citizenship test, basically?
In Abington, yes.
There you go.
But
We were creative. You didn't
Yes.
you didn't have to show photo ID, did you?
no, I don't know.
They probably didn't have them then.
Well, they had driver's licenses. I don't know. That's probably true. That's right. Yeah.
Funny.
But Abington's a nice, quiet town. It has changed. I mean, we had strawberries. You eat strawberries, but all of a sudden they took, because whenever we needed strawberries, we would go up to Rounds, who was on Ashland Street, and he had the strawberries. I'd bring them back to the store, and people would come in and think we grew the strawberries for them.
Well, you wouldn't tell them.
No, I mean,
Of course not.
If they asked, I would have, but it was neat because you met everybody in town because they all came to the nursery to get this or that. And,
Absolutely. But the business obviously changed over the years. You know.
it certainly did.
What changed it?
Well, a lot of things changed. In the nursery business, as you can see throughout Massachusetts, there aren't very many nurseries anymore,
Right.
as per se. And one of the reasons, I remember my friend Charlie McCullough over here, we worked together, and I remember him saying to him one day, Charlie, we buy these rooted lions for about 50 cents, and then we grow them on for 3 to 5 years, and then we have to put a 60-cent piece of burlap on them, have someone dig them, you weeded them and did everything else, and you can buy them in cans from Oklahoma for $2.95. And that basically is the problem with growing nursery stock.
Instead of some stuff coming from, well, maybe it does now, coming from overseas,
Well,
you were just finding it out west.
Right. Well,
So-
plant material is difficult from overseas because of
Restrictions. Yeah.
and
What are we bringing in with it?
Right. I mean, we used to deliver a lot of nursery stock up into Maine, and we had the federal Department of Agriculture was in all the time, and we had to make sure we dipped certain plants in because of Japanese beetle, because there's a quarantine, you couldn't. So all that is important. That's one of the problems. And so really, we had another situation where we needed 100 pin oaks. We had 100 pin oaks out in the nursery. It was cheaper to buy them from Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
balled and burlap, and delivered to the job site than it would cost us to dig the plants and put. So that's what's really happened to the nursery.
It went away.
It certainly has. I mean, some of them, there are still nurseries around,
Right.
but they really don't grow anything other than
They bring it in.
They bring it in, and they repot it and do things like that.
Sure, they take care of it once it gets here.
Right.
But
Yes.
it's being grown somewhere else.
Yeah, and then the cost of land. The difference is you still go down to Rhode Island and you'll see quite a few nurseries down there. two things. One, they have something that, like that we have, is a 61A that gives you a lower cost of taxes. So that allows them to be there. And they're right on the water. So we figured out that things that took us 5 years to grow, it would take them 3.
Wow.
Because of the difference in the temperature and so forth.
They just had better growing conditions.
Better growing conditions, yeah, and they have good tax rate down there for them.
So they can sell it cheaper and still make money.
You'll still see some good nurseries down there.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, Abington, well, Hancock Street, which was farmland,
Yeah.
someone discovered they could make a lot more money dividing it up into house lots and
Right.
selling
Ooh.
big houses.
We had another problem,
And you can speak to that from the planning board,
yeah,
too,
from
can't you?
we didn't have storage in Abington, as many of you know, and consequently, a lot of land wasn't buildable because you couldn't get a perk test.
Too swampy,
And
too wet.
and clay soils and so forth.
That too, yeah.
So, and then water in the cellar and everything else. So when sewage came into Abington, all of a sudden, a lot of area in town
Became
got
buildable.
developed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned Littlefield Wyman buying stock from other places, but their business also spread out as well, didn't it? They got their fingers in other things.
We did.
Is that you or the business in general?
The business,
Okay.
well, Littlefield Wyman particularly, because back in, I put some dates down here, but there was a company called Thomas J. Gray Company, and they were in Boston, formed in something like 1907 without finding it here. and so it was purchased by Lloyd Hathaway and Wyman at the time in 1949. And so that got us into the distributing business. They were a big seed house. They sold seeds all over the country. And that got us into the wholesale distributing business. So we sold garden centers, at first mostly hardware stores, and then garden centers. We also sold names that you don't even recognize anymore, like W.T. Grant and
I know that one.
Woolworth, Sears, almost.
Sears, they're still hanging on by a thread.
And so we did a lot of that all throughout New England.
Okay.
So that was one area. We also had a coal company, believe it or not, and they sold the oil part of the business because that was a passing fad, the oil.
Oil, yeah. No one wanted to heat with oil.
That got sold to Carey's, and that was in the middle of our nursery. We had about 100 acres of nursery stock all over. We had land over in North Abington on Charles and Patterson Street with its condos there now.
Sure.
And then we had the land over there where Stop and Shop is presently.
Yeah.
And Beacon Apartments out and back on Summer Street.
Now, I grew up on Wyman Road, which I'm told there was an area there.
Yeah, well, you know...
behind my next door neighbor's house, the pit was apparently
yeah, and it'd be wrong for me...
stripped off.
Right, it would be wrong for me not to make... Bay State Nurseries was huge, and more so before I came into town. And they had probably 1,000 acres.
Wow.
And they had a lot of land in Rockland. Their buildings are still there, some of them where Coal Tar is now, and across the street you'll see white buildings across there. That was all Bay State Nursery.
So you're talking Adams Street?
Adams
up
Street,
near,
yes.
I was about to say up near the old drive-in, but there's a whole generation who has no idea what
Yeah,
I'm talking about when I say that.
I was here when I got here too.
See,
yeah.
absolutely.
But I think it was being torn down.
Well, the Catholic Church closed it, we
right.
know that. The Catholic Church closed it, yes, we know that. We talked about that previously, too.
That was you guys?
Yes, it was. But anyway, yes, so up near the concrete plant, that's
Yes.
the current landmark.
Right,
Okay,
yes.
Okay, fine. BPDL, by the way,
And
is the name of the company. They are Canada.
Right, and the neat thing about it was that the rail was important because in Bay State's case, they actually shipped nursery stock that they grew here in Rockland and Abington and shipped it all over the country.
Wow.
Yeah, in our case, we got rail cars from the West Coast, from Oregon and Washington State, usually trees. And they'd come in rail cars. That's the one problem we'd have once in a while. Someone would call up and say, shut those, because it was refrigerated cars, and if it was close to the summertime,
They made noise.
Made a
Yeah,
little noise.
yeah.
So anyway, and we'd get a lot of that product that way. And we also, most of our bare root stock came from Tennessee and down that way.
Okay. So we stopped passenger rail service in the late 50s. Did the freight service for Littlefield Wyman continue after that?
Yes, we still had it for a while, until actually the T came along.
Oh, yeah.
So it was still coming through, and that's what the warehouse was there. We got, Pete Morse came in that way by rail from Canada. As I said, the nursery stock. Also, believe it or not, we got Charbroil grills from down south somewhere that went to Jordan Marsh, because that was one of our customers. And Ames Tools, which used to be made over here in
Easton. Yeah.
now it was coming up from Virginia on a rail. So
the rail changed then too.
that certainly did.
You mentioned somewhere along the line carnations. I mean, that was
Carnations is, I think, that's the big thing, I think, with Littlefield Wyman. Littlefield, who passed away at 104.
Wow.
I remember him, and I'm sure I could have looked it up, and I saw him in a parade, either whatever Abington's parade was. He was the Grand Marshal. At that time, he was at least 100 or more.
Wow.
But, and he started the Littlefield Carnation. Actually, I'm going to say invented. You never invent anything, right? Yeah, hybridized. Thank you, Charlie.
Good word.
Thank you. And
Hybridized.
and that carnation is still popular today. The Sydney and the Theo carnation.
And who are they named after?
They're named after Sidney Littlefield,
Okay.
who was the fellow that started the business in 1894. And those greenhouses were on Adams Street, over near where the North Abington Cooperative Bank is,
Okay.
a little further down. And there was
Abington Bank.
Abington Bank, I'm sorry. And I knew I'd get,
He was on the board. Come on. He probably still is.
you know, we go back and forth.
Yeah, there you go.
But, so, they had 26,000 feet of greenhouse.
Wow.
Which was quite substantial. And they shipped cuttings all over the world, to Europe and everything else. They were, and then Hampson ended up having the greenhouse after that. That was after I got here. And Charlie McCullough over in the back room, he'll talk to you about, because he used to go there once in a while. And in addition to that, Littlefield, even though he retired like 30 years earlier, I guess was there almost every day, even though he had nothing to do
So
with
much.
it.
Well, that's why he was there. He had nothing.
Right, well, he was living next door. Yeah,
Couldn't
yeah.
escape it.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
That's interesting. So, as much as, I mean, we think of the railroad coming to Abington as having everything to do with the shoe industry, because, of course, Abington we still think of as one of the shoe capitals of the world, and it was around Civil War time, and it wasn't long after the railroad came in that it did that. But I think we often forget the impact of the railroad on other businesses, and you're certainly bringing that to the forefront here, that you not only brought stuff in, you sent stuff out that way. So.
Yes.
Now, there was a cast of characters here. You mentioned Littlefield,
Sidney Littlefield.
but
yeah.
also Wyman
Then
as well.
Walton Wyman
But there was
came-
another name too that I've seen on some
Right.
deeds.
Yes, Walton Wyman came shortly thereafter, and he started the nursery end of the business.
Okay.
And he was a brother-in-law
Oh.
of Littlefield.
So Littlefield and Wyman were related by marriage.
Right.
Didn't
yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
See, learned something new.
And then also Lloyd Hathaway came
That's
about
the other name.
19, I've got it down here, but don't hold me to it unless I look at my notes, like 1931.
Okay.
By the way, he worked for someone that you all know and remember, Thomas Edison.
No, in
Yes.
Braintree.
I don't know where, but he was actually, I think, in New Jersey.
Okay.
Working
Oh, would have
for
been,
him
I
at the time.
suppose.
And of course,
I'm thinking of Bell. I think.
yeah,
instead of-
right.
yeah,
Of course, he started the first city electricity in Brockton.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was, for me, back then, to walk in his office and see to LAH from, it was sort of neat. But that's.
A connection to history. No?
Yes.
Okay. Whatever happened to that stuff? We want it here.
I'm sure his daughter, I can't believe his daughter doesn't have it, I'm sure, yeah, that'd be one thing. We did have 3 nice pictures of Littlefield and Hathaway and Wyman in the office, and we did give that to those of the family.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're always looking for copies.
I know, okay.
Dyer has in many ways become a huge genealogical research center, particularly for local history and local genealogy. So all of that sort of stuff fascinates us here, and we add it to the annals of stuff. So, and people are often offering to donate various things having to do with Abington businesses, and we're always interested in that too. So in terms of the businesses around, I mean, you mentioned Bay State being another
Yeah.
one. On Hancock Street, we had Holman's and Hutchings.
Uh,
I'm doing this wrong.
Holman's was on Route 18, almost right across from Maria Ragazza on National Tree.
Oh,
down
of
there.
course. That was actually the old Dyer estate.
That's right. They were in there.
Marietta, yes.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Hutchins greenhouse on Hancock Street.
Okay.
And
Now, what was the big one the chimney is still there? Or was that recently?
I think the chimney's down, but I don't know. Sopas
Is
live
it
there
gone?
now, right?
It's gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Because that was another big one.
Yeah, and I don't know what. I think the greenhouse was sort of tattered but I remember
Okay.
the chimney was there for quite a while.
That was a very impressive chimney
Yes,
for a
yeah,
greenhouse,
yeah.
wasn't it?
It was interesting on Bay State that a lot of people don't know is that there were Windsor, and they're all buried at Mount Vernon, so you can see the whole history and all the dates and everything. And he had two sons, Donald and Richard. And Donald ended up running Bay State here, and Richard ended up running Wyman's nursery in Framingham, which ended up becoming Shopper's World. So they sold all that property. Nothing like being in the way of progress. And then of course, because he saw all the money that was made over there,
Oh, yeah.
when they closed their garden center down, they made that their own shopping center. So across the street is all their shopping center.
Interesting.
And they also had land in Halifax,
Okay.
which is now Halifax Country Club. And Paige Wyman, who was the only one I really knew, he wasn't interested in sales. He was interested in getting the bulldozer going and things like that. And I think he did all the bulldozer work down at the Halifax Country Club.
Interesting.
At the time. And we did end up with one piece of very valuable property from Bay State. Our mule Daisy passed away, and
Everyone needs a mule.
by the way, people around town would have known Daisy back then because Daisy did your sidewalks with a plow, with a wooden plow, and they would go up and down 139 or 123 and so forth.
Daisy was the reason the kids got to school? Is that what you're telling me?
Daisy was it. And of course, back in those days, they kept having school.
No matter what.
Yeah, that's right. Up both ways.
It had nothing to do with that, yeah.
Right. But so Daisy was our mule, a white mule. My granddaughter ended up going to Colby, and their mascot is a white mule. So I gave her an autographed picture of
Daisy.
Jimmy. Yeah.
Cool.
So, anyway.
Actually, they also had horse and wagon fairly late into it, and I know that because Steve Baker, who's sitting over here, mentioned they used to catch a ride or something.
The horse's name was Daisy also. Mr. Young.
Oh, he worked it. That was Daisy. That's Daisy you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was a horse.
That was a mule.
Was it
That
mule?
was a mule. Big mule though. It was a mule.
They're related.
Yeah.
And yeah. He in his late in his 80s, he would take his hockey puck and go and use the hockey puck over an Island Grove when it froze over. That George Young.
Well,
Yeah.
I lived on Park Avenue. He'd go up with his horse and wagon, apparently from Patterson Street, back every night, and neighborhood kids would, sometimes he'd let us jump
Is
on the
that
wagon
right?
and take a wagon.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Small town Abington.
That
Good thing.
mule used to run away, used to run through our backyard.
Oh, let me tell you.
The runaway mule? And
I
what was it looking for in your backyard?
I don't know.
If somebody would let him out, we ended up putting locks on it and everything else.
Didn't
and
know.
the kids would. One night I was at a friend's house and he said, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I just bought Littlefield Wyman." And he says, "Oh, you did?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Well, I said, oh, no, I didn't say it to him that way. I said it some other way. I said, I bought a mule or something like that."
Fine.
So I talked about the mule. So I got a phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning. And, "Hey, Wayne, your mule." I said, You got it, the phone in the kitchen?
Yes.
You know, Jim, you got to be kidding me. Take the mule, bring it in the front door, take it to the right at the top of the stairs, and put it in bed with you. And I hung up. And I had a habit of going to Jim's house every Sunday morning. Priscilla and I would go over there, and I said, "Thanks for the phone call." I didn't make a phone call. You couldn't believe Jim anyway, but you could believe his wife. And Nancy said, "No, he never called you." It's like, okay, whatever. I got home. Oh, no, Priscilla went home first. She called me. She better come home. We got a phone call or something. I said, okay. So evidently, Joe Andrews called me on the phone from the police department. And that's what I told him to do with the mule.
So did he?
So before I called the police department and the lady that was in the yard, I called Bill Hussey, the superintendent. I said, Bill, I said, oh yeah, he says, you gave Joe a hard time on the phone. I had to go up and get the mule. So I had to come up from Pembroke to get the mule, which he did. And so anyway, then I called the lady and I figured, oh, I was in real trouble. I guess he was eating the, what'd she say? She eating the lilac on 123. And the kids woke her up at 4 in the morning. There's a big animal in the yard. And she couldn't believe him. So, but that mule got out far too often. But your dad used to, we had Puerto Ricans, you know, quite a few in 25 or 30, and your dad would bring them fish when he went fishing and vegetables out of the vegetable garden. They thought a lot of your dad, yes.
A different time and a different place.
Yeah.
I wasn't, as I was going over things in my head, understanding we do address the historic interests of Abington, Rockland, and Whitman. Were there any facilities in Whitman? Do you know of any greenhouses and such?
There was a greenhouse that if you were, before you got to Ritter's,
Yeah.
right on the right-hand side there was
Down
one.
on Franklin Street that way, or the Washington Street way?
Out of the, it'd be way, Washington all the way out, and then take a left
Okay.
where that road goes down. There was a big set of greenhouses down there.
Down there?
And also Tilden's.
Dean's here, actually, yeah.
Over in Rockland.
One in Whitman was Gilly Blackledge.
Yeah.
He used to
Gilly.
raise carnations and snapdragons.
More carnations?
He developed carnations.
Seems to be a theme,
Yeah.
which I didn't realize.
They were huge. What ruined the carnation business is the stuff being imported,
Yeah.
as much as anything. Yeah.
The native carnations always had a mint smell to them, very, very fragrant. Now, carnations today don't have any
I
smell.
was going to say, I just don't think of any smell with any aroma with carnations, and there aren't any apparently. But the local ones had a mint?
Yeah.
Interesting. So, does anyone still grow them, or they're
Not
just,
to my knowledge.
they're all coming from elsewhere?
Right.
Okay, interesting. Now, you folks moved your business, your sales outlet, is it? What have you've gone to Market Street or something?
Yeah, when I retired, I gave it to my niece and she moved it up on Market Street.
Okay.
We had 2 locations in Rockland at one time. We had on Union Street and Rice Avenue, there was a greenhouse there,
Okay.
and then the one on Cliff Street.
The one on Cliff Street was the one I knew. Okay, absolutely. So, okay. And we already mentioned the other one in Rockland on the corner of Plain and North Ave. That was a large one there. Was that Bay State still?
I don't know.
Packets?
I don't know. And
Packard's?
Packard's greenhouse was
Okay.
on 139. They had it also on 139.
On the bend.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Millie's granddaughter, Millie Packard was, I think I mentioned earlier, but it's the people. And,
Oh, yeah.
And Millie,
That's why we're here.
Millie Packard and Cliff ran Packard's greenhouse and garden center. And Millie, Cliff actually came and worked for us for a while, and then Millie worked at Woolworths in Hingham. And I got a phone call one day, and it was because we sold Woolworths down there. His name was Richard Rogers. I can remember that. I think someone wrote music. But Richard Rogers was his name. And
Different Richard
yeah,
Rogers,
right.
but there
And he
you
said
go.
to me, he says, Wayne, he says, can you do me a favor? I said, sure, whatever. He says, well, he said, we have mandatory retirement at Woolworths at 65. That's how times have changed. And so, and I have to let Millie go. Can you, I said, yep, she can come and work for me tomorrow morning, no problem at all. She
Neat.
worked in the garden center. And I remember one day, I walked in the store and a lady needed a 50-pound bag of lime put in her car, and Millie asked one of the younger gals to do it, you know, teenager. He said, well, I can't lift that. And Millie said, I'll take it. Never mind, Millie, I'll take it out. So I took the bag out and I came back in. By the way, Millie, I said, how old are you? I don't want to tell you, but you could, Millie, no matter what, she'd answer any question you ever had. I said, you don't have to tell me, I don't care. I'm going to be 70. Millie, you can work here forever. And it's all because of you. You. So every year they'd have this party for Millie. She's going. I said, I'm not going. You got to go. Millie's been here. I said, I don't care. I'm not going. Why not? I'm not going because she's going to come back next spring. No, she won't. She's not. So long come middle of March, I said, Millie, you ready? Yep, I'm coming. Should she come back? And one year she came to me, she says, I've got a granddaughter. I'm going to have to stay home and take care of her. That was your what?
That was my sister's daughter.
Oh, okay.
That was when, yeah, she watched the kids until she was 80.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure they didn't get away with anything.
No, they didn't.
See?
Yeah.
Times have definitely changed.
She was a peach, I'll tell you.
Anyway, among our audience, I'm curious, we have our viewpoints from what we have seen and what we have known, but are there any other memories to share about nurseries and greenhouses? Dean, you've been listening, I know, here, but you knew the business from the inside as well.
Well, I grew up there, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the day I was born, my mother was picking sweet peas. Didn't make it to the hospital, so I was born in the living room at the hospital.
I was going to say you were born in the field? With the sweet peas? Close. You were born in the living room. That's great. What a great story. Working in the field to the end. Huh? Kind of cool. So you have obviously seen changes through the business too. Similarly in that the plants are coming from elsewhere and they're being sold elsewhere too? Or?
The closest they come from, I think, now is California.
Okay.
For us, anyhow. But for us.
Okay. I'm always impressed that it tends to be, certainly at the retail level, a very seasonal business. I mean, Easter's coming. I've noticed my hyacinths are beginning to pop out of the pot in my living room already. And is it still very seasonally driven? I mean,
It is, but the Memorial Day used to be the biggest. Memorial Day and Christmas.
because Memorial Day, what, decorating graves or? Okay.
Yeah. We used to fill urns and pots and pans and do cemetery lots. And today, I mean, when I retired, I don't think I did a half a dozen.
Right.
And we used to, the house next door to us, we used to fill the cellar, and it had 2 stories. It would be baskets of cut flowers for people to decorate graves. They don't do that.
Something's not done anymore. Yeah, interesting change in habit, which led to a change in the business. Absolutely. So,
I guess one of the things I didn't mention, we did do a lot of landscaping, and we did landscaping all over New England and New York State, most all the universities all over New England, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, HEW building in Boston, the JFK Government Center building in Boston, Salt and Stall office building, Boston Commons, a lot of trees in there.
now, why were they coming out to Abington for the business? That seems
well,
odd to me, but
These were landscaping, so there were a lot of, all that was all union work.
Okay.
I mean, we averaged in Abington, the Abington High School and the junior high. And then I do recall one time with Bill Hussey going down to Washington DC, we took a whole trailer loaded nursery stock
wow.
to Washington DC for down there. But so, and then Maine was our biggest because Lloyd Hathaway was from Maine and he had that connection.
Yeah, the connections.
And he'd always make a couple of trips a year up to Maine, and we'd up to Tugus, Maine, to the Veterans Hospital and all that stuff up there. So that was another part of the business.
Another export from Abington that
Right,
we're not
right.
aware of. So,
Yeah, and we had about 150 people working for us, along with 25 or 30 Puerto Ricans who were neat people.
Mhm.
So many in the family were all related. I mean, the Hemmings family, it was Sid Hemmings, I'm not sure whether it's his cousin or his brother, Bert Hemmings, Bert Hemmings' wife, his both sons, Bob, who was in the oil business, Hemmings, and his son Jack, and just a lot of family people that were.
It's a good sign, a business that supports families and families that want to work in a particular business and work together. It's a nice thing from a small town, particularly. I think we saw it more here, with small town businesses.
When you talk about this old house,
I'm sorry?
this old house,
Oh yeah, if the first this old house was,
With Bob Vila?
well, yeah,
Okay.
and I remember one day, Russ Morash, who come running out of the trailer, he says, "Down at all," he says, "you're not the expert," he says, you just ask the questions. And I was ready to go on to, and the other funny thing that happened while we were there, they were dig a hole for a good site with a backhoe. And I said, "Gee," I said, "Rush, you ever check anything about the gas or anything, gas lines?" And, "No, we never have." So they called someone up.
No.
We would have gone right through the gas. The first program would have had a great explosion up there.
So much for dig safe, huh?
Yeah, I know.
Well, it would have been interesting TV.
Yeah. So you can still go on YouTube if you want to see it. And that's something.
We never go away now,
No,
we're
I
just
know it.
always on YouTube.
Isn't that awful? Oh,
No, it's actually kind of cool.
I guess it is, yeah.
Absolutely. Anyway, so who else has some memories to share about local nurseries?
I grew up in Rockland, right near the Wyman nurseries.
Yes.
Now, is that the same Wyman?
That was the Bay State. That was Bay State.
That was based in.
Yeah. And that's where all the confusion gets with the Wymans.
We always knew when it was lunchtime because the bell rang on top of the barn
I believe it.
and quitting time.
Yeah.
What about that place in Hanson? Is that
That,
connected?
no relation. There may be a relation back somewhere, but I don't know what it is.
Not
Yeah.
in recent history.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And there's still a Mr. Wyman who's associated with that one as
Yes,
well.
that's the father. That's the one that started it, and the
Okay.
son's there. Yeah.
I know he's getting up in years, but yes.
I don't know, I moved
Yes.
away from this area.
There was
When
an
I lived in
Abington
London.
strawberry called the Abington berry,
Uh-huh.
and did you ever hear about that?
No, I really don't. All I know is Mr. Rounds knew everything, and he was a selectman in town too, way before my
Well, I
time.
knew George. The Abington used to be called Strawberry Valley,
That's great.
and the football team has the Strawberry Valley Rollers because there were so many strawberries farms in Abington.
Yeah.
And then I guess they got a virus, and so the strawberry business moved to the Cape where the sandier soil wouldn't grow the virus, I guess,
Good pig. Yeah.
because there's very heavy soil there.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Truffin, was your family or something involved in that berry you're talking about? Or do you know who hybridized? I just learned
No,
that
I
word.
don't know, I was wondering if he knew.
Okay.
No, my great-grandmother used to have where the golf course is,
Yeah.
had a farm there, and my father then grew corn there and had a little roadside stand there. But I remember them talking about the Abington berry, and I'd like some information on it if anybody knew about it.
Not heard of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So we'll have to see if we can learn more about it, or maybe some of our cable viewers might know something more about it. It's the other thing we find out when we are out there on cable and out there on YouTube is we hear things years later about things we never knew about. So a fun tie-in is that our program coming up on the Lamson motorcycle, and Wayne was looking at the listing of programs and said, wait a minute, they were built in our building, and had pictures of the old Lamson house being
Right.
moved off the property onto Park Avenue.
So you know where that building is? It's at
I know.
just right after the railroad station. Well.
No, well, where the railroad station used to be, again, but as it turned out, one of my high school classmates now owns that building. So, I mean, it just keeps getting stranger and stranger. But I need to send that information to Rick Wolf up in Canada to kind of complete his. But we kept hearing from people on Facebook who, oh yeah, Mrs. Lamson was my aunt or my grandmother or whatever. And the more we put stuff out there, the more stuff comes back to us. And it's always fascinating from a research point of view. You think you know everything and you don't. And there's people out there
I was
who knows more.
real small when they moved that house, and one of the things I remember, I don't remember how they got it there. All I remember is that one night I stayed in the middle of Park Avenue for the nights that we were, as kids, were allowed to play in the street because there was no cars coming.
Wow.
But I remember the remnants of Abington Coal Company too. When that house was put on Park Avenue, they installed a coal burning furnace, a self-feeding
Yeah.
peak hole with a 55-gallon drum with a screw auger. And it had to have been one of the last coal installations in town. I always figured it had to be because Littlefield Hyman owned the coal.
On the coal company too.
Well, the funny part about the coal thing was, I said to Mr. Hathaway one day, I would call him Mr. Hathaway. The kids would come in and call him Lloyd. I always called him
Mr. Hathaway.
But anyway, we were getting $21 a ton for the coal. We were making $4. It came on a rail car and it ended up on at the siding. And so for $4, we unloaded the rail car, piled it up, put 4 ton at a time on that truck and brought it over to Abington Textile. And I said to Mr. Hathaway, I said, we can't do this anymore.
You can't make money.
You can't get any more than that. So I said, well, you'll have to tell them we won't be able to supply them anymore. So we did. And then Williams Coal and Oil ended up selling it to them. And they were making like $14, $15 a ton. I said, gee, if I'd only known that, we might still been in the coal business.
Did you take the textile up in North Abington? Or
Yes,
one
yeah,
down here?
in North Abington, yes. They used a lot of coal. Yeah.
And Judy McGovern from Abington, whose father was the superintendent,
Yes.
married Brian Williams,
Uh-huh.
as in Williams Coal and
Oh,
Oil.
wow,
Yeah.
that's neat.
Yeah, they actually are clients of mine.
I tell you, they're all related.
I tell you, it's true. It's absolutely true. The stone never, the acorn never falls far from. I'll mix up my metaphors here,
You
but
got it.
anyway, one way or the other. But yeah, I mean, it's fascinating the connections that connect all the different businesses together. So do we have any more questions for Wayne? I'm seeing a garden club member back here. You.
Linda. I actually grew up on Robbins Avenue, which is 2 streets from the Brockton line.
We'll
And-
forgive you.
Well, hey, good. But there were greenhouses at the corner of Robbins Avenue and 123 or Brockton Avenue, and I literally grew up in those greenhouses, and I think that's where my love of gardening and planting.
Was that Dunbar?
Dunbar.
Yes, it
Yes.
was. It was Dunbar's greenhouses. And they grew geraniums, and later they grew calla lilies.
But did they grow carnations? This is the question
No
of the day.
carnations. They were primarily geraniums, and somebody was mentioning Memorial Day.
Yeah.
It was absolutely bonkers there because of all the cemetery baskets that were being made.
Right.
But it was a great memory, and I often think that's probably where my love of gardening came from, because it was wonderful to learn. They would take cuttings and make plant them for new geraniums, and it was just fascinating to me.
You got to see the process from the ground up.
I did.
Literally.
And now it's a used car lot, so it's sad, really.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Progress. Absolutely, Clay. Yes, Steve.
You mentioned that you were involved with Littlefield Incorporated now. Does something still exist at Littlefield Hyman?
Littlefield Wyman, in 1980, we changed the name to Littlefield Inc. And so we supply farms, fertilizers and things like that, and mostly fertilizers to organic farms. And we also have a couple of websites that we sell organic products on the internet.
But you don't have any physical facilities left in?
The facilities are still there, part of it. Of course, the tea station's there now, and but there's a couple of warehouses there.
Oh, so you still work out of that?
Yes, yeah.
The same place as always.
When I lived in Whitman, I used to go to a place on Route 27. She sold, I think, fruits, vegetables, and flowers. Her name was Rose.
Turgeon.
Yeah. I wonder if it's still there.
No.
It's for sale for rent.
Thank you, Mr. Trufa.
Callie, you know some things about the old greenhouses.
Well, I was fortunate. I worked at both places. When I was in high school, I worked at the Carnation Ranch when Hampson had it. And Sidney Littlefield would come over on a daily basis, as you mentioned, and sit in the packing shed and talk to the buncher while she was bunching up the carnations. But in the building, the office building that was Bay State, that connected to the greenhouse, is still there. It's a house, that was a house when I knew it, but it wasn't, it was the office. The two main greenhouses, one was 300 feet and the other was 200 feet long. I picked it up on the web. That was one of the trade publications built in 1906. And I think the thing is with Littlefield, the variety, that was a major variety. I mean, there's only like a half a dozen that really stood out. Sims, Apollo, Littlefield, Sydney, Littlefield, White. Kathleen Ann was another one, which was a white and a little red flick in that. And New England at one point had, I've heard different numbers, New England carnation growers, plus or minus 200 in the association. And of course there's none. And I had a somewhat of a unique experience. I had an opportunity a number of years ago to go over to the Chelsea Flower Show in London. And a little different flower show, we put on landscape settings. They had like 40 feet of begonia potted plants for the association. They had a big display of carnations. So I said, oh, European carnations. It'd be interesting to see what kind of varieties they have. And big urns full of all kinds of white, pinks, or whatever. Every one was a Sims. Sims was developed in Saugus, Mass. And and Sims is still there. They had a place on Tewksbury and that. But it was in that state. It was an amazing thing. The interesting thing, every time I go into a flower shop now, I ask them what they're paying for a carnation. And I don't know, 40, 50 cents a piece or whatever. We were thrilled when we made a nickel. and maybe we went for a dime, around Mother's Day or something. But I can remember Frank Hampson's wife being huffing and puffing. They were down to 1 or 2 cents, when she was beating up the poor broker in Boston, the flower market. It was a different era then.
Interesting that our hybrids went to Europe then, apparently.
Oh, absolutely.
At the same time.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we reverse influenced.
Yeah.
Exciting.
The industry went from here to Colorado. Colorado was big, California, and then it went to South America.
Okay.
Initially, Colombia.
Okay. And a lot of that, it was a combination of growing conditions and labor rates, I'm thinking. Is that fair?
Yeah, basically, it was interesting because I was, like carnation, I went through a Peace Corps program for Colombia. And the whole time I'm going through there was ag extension. I kept saying, boy, that'd be a great place to grow carnation.
Yeah.
One of the chapters of my book on how I was almost a millionaire but never made it.
Is this a thick book or a thin book?
Yeah, thicker than I like it a bit. The environment down there, the outdoor conditions and that, everything was just right for carnation.
Okay.
Somebody actually from Colorado, I understand, went down and started it in Colombia.
Will heat and greenhouses.
Oh, everything, yeah.
Exciting. Anyway, okay. Any last questions before I release you all to the back room for some light refreshments?
I think if I could add on the nursery thing. I remember I went to Stockbridge School. I was a lot younger than Wayne.
Okay.
The argument about Littlefield in its day was one of the, if not the, nurseries out there. And people, I remember Professor Procopio, he stuttered, I just stuttered out of habit. It was Paul Procopio. But I can remember him talking about his first job out of school was at this significant nursery and how big it was. And I can remember we had a propagator, we had out in the fields. I mean, it was a different time, and that was Littlefield. That was Littlefield, and it was like, if you wanted somebody came in and wanted a clematis, you didn't give him a pot of that. You went down to get the propagator. He went out in the field and dug out in the bed and gave you a stick with a lot of roots on it. And that was a clematis. I mean, it was a real production nursery at one point, along with all the other landscape vendors.
It was interesting, our propagator was from Lithuania, and he had a number of displaced persons that worked for him. They would come from Brockton, get off the bus in front of the nursery with a suit on, and then go down the greenhouse, change into their work clothes, and work out in the beds. And one of the things that happened quite often when the Naval Air Station was going, the jets would come in, and there was one guy that would run to the barn and lay on the floor of the barn because of his past experiences. And it was always, and then when they'd go home, George, who was the propagator, would bring them back to Brockton, but in the car. But they would have a suit on
to show up for work,
to get to work.
To show to work.
Yeah.
Definitely a different time.
What do you mean, to create an image?
No, it's just that was what when you went to work. I mean, my father was in the restaurant business in Fall River, and he'd get the bus every morning. He'd have a suit on, and he'd get off the bus and go to the restaurant. And in later days, he did everything. The whites came on, and you worked in the kitchen. And then you put your suit on to go home. If some of you remember when you got on an airplane a number of years ago.
People dressed
you got
up.
dressed up.
Yes.
Today, you know, and maybe it's the same in church too, Bob.
It is.
Why, do people still get dressed up at church? I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Not really.
I think people are
Depends
more
on the church.
casual today.
Yeah, and we used to, all the women wore hats too, remember? Yeah.
There was a church, funny little anecdote to speak to what you're talking about. There was a church here in town, and I was going for a music rehearsal after a particular service. And it was fall, and it was a warm day, and I had just come back from church, and I went home and changed into shorts and t-shirt and showed up at this church. It was just finishing their service, and there was a gentleman at the back door, and I was going into the choir room. And here he is in a three-piece suit. I'm approaching in sandals and shorts and a t-shirt. And can I help you? Just going in to see so-and-so. I said, oh, okay. And I got in the door, and there's another guy in a three-piece suit who turned to me and gave me the up and down. Can I help you? I immediately felt underdressed, but yes. But for the most part.
I didn't think anybody would get to you.
They didn't really, but I mean, I was laughing. It
You
was
can't
funny.
be a conformist. Mow at the mall.
Me? God, I don't think I ever have been.
I don't think you can do what everyone else does. Be an individual.
Anyway. Well, thank you. Very enlightening. I certainly learned a lot today. And who knew carnations from Abington? Hybrids, local hybrids for carnations from Abington. So please come back for our 2 remaining programs of the year. There are some forms on the table in the middle which have the conversations listed. And there's also a membership blank inside, and there's some membership forms on the table in the next room. We are serving light refreshments in the back room. We have coffee, we have coffee cake, we have whatever. But please join. One quick question before we go. Who here are members of the Historical Society of Old Abington? Raise your hands. Okay, look around and see who doesn't have their hand raised, and make sure you say hi to them. Okay, we want to make them feel welcome. So, thank you all, and thank you for Billy for jumping in on the camera today. Eileen's out of town, and we look forward to chatting with you more in the back room. Thank you all. I should go turn on the hot water for tea. Thank you, that was great. Thank you.
I know both of them.
I didn't know about the creations. That's really cool. Well done, sir. I was talking about strawberry. I went to Peru.